My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. This is the only channel dedicated to UFC fight picks and DraftKings lineups run by MMA insiders and professional fighters. Every week, I join Dan Kramer and Nick Newell, two longtime professional fighters that have fought at the highest levels on the planet, as well as Jacob Lyons, a skinny kid from Indiana. So join us every single week for our full fight card breakdowns, our individual fight card breakdowns, our betting guide, and our DraftKings lineups. Next up at UFC Vegas 24, we have Alexander Romanov versus Juan Espino in what should be an awesome fight and very exciting fight. I'm looking forward to this fight. Dan, Juan Espino is an American top team guy. You're an American top team guy. What are your thoughts? How do you see this going?
So this might be the fight I'm looking forward to most for different reasons than Angelo, but I think it's it is two bulls that are both used to going out and imposing their will. And it's going to be interesting to see who does it. So Romanov, undefeated, 13-0, big heavyweight wrestler. He's every bit of 265. And watching him fight, I think of Brock Lesnar, the way he shoots that blast double just recklessly, throws you against the cage. His blast double would probably total a small SUV. He's got a power single leg. He's got strong body locks. And the big thing is when he gets on top, he looks very heavy with brutal ground and pound. His last few fights, when he got on top of guys, the Donkey Kong punches. I would not want that guy on top of me. And then his last fight, he fought Marcos Rogério de Lima and literally choked him out with a forearm to the throat. I think I used to do that to my brother when we used to wrestle outside, but he did it to a professional fighter at heavyweight and put him unconscious. So
and to Angelo.
And it's the third time he's done it. So we're talking serious power here with this guy, serious strength, serious power. But I will say his striking does not look good. He hasn't really had to use it in most of his fights because he just steamrolls people to the ground. He's got a powerful left kick, but he looks a little bit off balance when he throws it. But from the striking department, that's really all I saw. He was getting beat up by De Lima while it was on the feet, and then eventually he said enough of that and just kind of bull charged him and got him to the ground. Excuse me. So anyways, insanely strong guy. The fight before that against Rocky Martinez, I actually had him in DraftKings that week. I scored a gazillion points. He suplexed him over his head. The guy's like literally 260 pounds, like condensed into a ball, probably the hardest human form you could ever have to suplex. And when he got on top of him, he just went from different power sub to different power sub. Kimura, Americana, headlock at one point, mount, crazy ground and pound, the Donkey Kong punches Jacob was talking about, just a smothering beatdown, 10-8 round for sure in the first, and then finished him in the second with a head and arm choke. So he's looked like a one-way train, just like taking people out so far. This fight, though, he's fighting Juan Espino, who's 10-1, 6'3", 255, so another big boy. And you can tell by their builds, he's definitely a more muscular guy. He is 40 years old, and he's had a little bit of a layoff, or previously had a layoff. But the guy hasn't lost since 2011. So stylistic-wise, he's also a good grappler, good wrestling, used to getting his way and doing that top game big boy jiu-jitsu where power subs. But I would say overall, he is definitely more technical, both in his takedowns and striking. Overall, I think he's just a more technical fighter. He dominated Jeff Hughes' last fight, got multiple takedowns, mount, took the back, won with a scarf hold choke. So he's got a similar style, powerful, strong stuff that gets finishes. Same thing 2 fights ago against Justin Frazier, another big heavyweight, took him down right out of the gates, side control, straight arm lock finish. So these guys are both used to getting on top, beating guys up, and finishing. So I just think the matchup is going to be very interesting to see both of these styles collide, because one of them is going to get their way and one isn't. I will say, I think Espino has an advantage if he fights a smart game plan, right? So we know what Romanov's going to do. He's going to bull forward, push against the cage, try to get that takedown. If he gets on top of you, it's not a good thing, no matter how good you are in jiu-jitsu or any of that. But I think if Espino can call it weather the storm in the first round or evade takedowns, fight out in the open as much as possible. If he does get taken down, try to scramble back up as soon as he can, make Romanov work. Do not let him settle on top. If he can do that for the first round and not give Romanov his way, it'll be interesting to see, because we've seen Romanov be the hammer, but we really haven't seen him be the nail in any fights. And I think Espino is big enough and good enough to do that and make it a fight. So if that's the case, I think Espino's got more skills to win. And I think in later rounds, if he can create space, he could piece him up on the feet. And if he gets on top himself in the later rounds and Romanov is too tired to scramble, I think he could also, win the fight that way. So I think it's going to be really close. It's a tough one to call. As always, I'm going with the ATT train guy. I think that, they're going to be prepared. They've got game plans in place. He trains with Steve Mako, who's a heavyweight wrestler, went to the Olympics. So they've got all the tools they need to prepare for this sort of matchup. So I'm picking him, but I think it's going to be a great fight, and it's going to be really interesting to see who kind of dominates out of the gates, because both these guys have that sort of style.
Yeah, that was a good breakdown. I usually bust your balls about how long you take, but everything there was rock solid. I think it is tricky because on paper, so first of all, both of them are national caliber wrestlers in the country that they're from. So right out of the gate, they're both the best in their countries. Then, as you mentioned, the striking is the next piece. I think they're pretty evenly matched with the striking. Neither one of them are phenomenal. Juan Espino is probably more technical, uses it in its truest form to actually strike, where Romanov uses it just to get to his wrestling. And then in the jiu-jitsu, I think Juan Espino is a much better actual jiu-jitsu guy. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. But to your point, I don't know if that matters. I just don't know if that matters. So this is super, super tricky. Juan Espino is traditionally relentless with his takedowns, just relentless. Keep trying, keep working forward. You compared Alexander Romanov to Brock Lesnar, which is a solid comparison. But if you look at who beat Brock Lesnar the first time was Cain Velasquez, because he was like, I'm not going to wait for you to shoot. I'm going to shoot. So I would actually say the opposite, where you said Juan's path to victory is weather the storm, stay away, avoid getting taken down, and then you can start to impose your plan. I would almost say go right at it. Shoot the takedowns first, have him back up, have him worry about the takedowns, and you march forward, because why are you waiting for a charging bull if you can just go right at it first?
Yep. No, that is a very, very good point. And right. I think it's got to be one or the other, right? It can't be a feeling out process. It's got to be, yeah, you're right. Because if he gets on top early, I mean, both these guys are monsters on top. So, and actually, there was something I had in here. I didn't mention it before, but I saw it in one of his fights. Romanov did get taken down by Sultan Murtaziliev a few fights back, and the guy's a 235-pound heavyweight, so not a big heavyweight. Now, it was off of a kick, but he did get him down. He was on top. It was the first round, so Romanov scrambled up. But I just see, like, if Espino can capitalize on something like that early, I don't think Romanov gets up as easily. So yeah, if there's an opportunity to get on top early, whether it be scramble or just go out there and get the first takedown, race for the first takedown, that's a good point, because that's another potential path to victory.
Well, and I promise, Jacob, we'll go to you. As a wrestler, I've wrestled most of my life. It is much easier to finish a takedown than defend a takedown. It just is. So you don't want to be in a position defending a takedown against somebody that good when you could get your own. And honestly, somebody like George St. Pierre showed that. George St. Pierre was not a wrestler. He learned how to wrestle in his MMA career, and he smoked all these genuinely good wrestlers because he didn't wait. He just shot. And it's much easier to finish a takedown than to defend one. So That would be my approach. I'm obviously not in his camp, not in his ear. So pick wise, I hate to make a pick because nothing would surprise me here. I will go with Espino only because I think he's just the better fighter. Alexander Romanov is more physically imposing and is probably better at that one thing, which is the factor here. But I just think Juan Espino is the better fighter. I just hope his age isn't going to be an issue. I hope he's not going to get to 40s old. I'm 37. I'm old. So I just hope that age doesn't catch up to him. He doesn't get gassed. And, he has no problem going out there, just charging forward and making it happen. So Jacob, if anybody's still watching after 49 minutes, what are your thoughts here?
First of all, the double hammer fist, I think he was in full mount when he was doing that double hammer fist. And one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen in my life. That big man just on top, literally just both fists going at you. I will say that, Alexander, you mentioned you think their stand-ups are even. Alexander has no stand-up at all. He just runs forward at you with your head down, and that's what he does.
Heavyweight Ben Askren. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. And actually against Lima, his last fight, he was taking a lot of damage while he was coming in. He just kind of comes forward, and Lima was hitting him with shots. And I think Juan's a decent enough striker to where, he has heavy enough hands to where he actually could, lay in some shots in there. But my big prediction for this fight is it is the absolute most boring fight on the card. I think it's one of those situations where they're both just phenomenal grapplers. And you guys kind of alluded to it, like who's going to wait for the shot, who's going to initiate the shot. I think it just could be one of those matchups where they just kind of stand and stare at each other because they're both waiting for the shot, from the other person. So that's my big prediction. With that said, I think Juan can win it with his, his striking on the shots. He can catch him moving in, and he's crafty enough on the ground and good enough himself to win. So I think there's actually very good value at $7,400 for Juan. He was originally in my lineup. But then Alexander is just so good, and you see him on top in so many positions that, there's a decent enough chance that even at $7,400, he's just on his back for 3 rounds. So, but I see this both just standing almost the entire time in a very boring fight, but I have one.
I would be so shocked that, you could be right, but I just don't think Romanov has a gear that's not go forward and get takedown. Like, I just can't imagine him hanging out in space.
I hope I'm wrong, but that's just the way I see it.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It's definitely an interesting matchup.
Yeah, I'm very curious about this one. So, we'll see what happens, and I'm looking forward to it. Before you go, check out the description below. In there, we have links to our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram, and more importantly, to our DraftKings League. Check out the league, join the league, participate in the contests, and as we get going and as you start winning, we're going to start handing out gift cards and participating and doing things like that. So check those out. Every week, there are drops on every fight card. So make sure you check out this channel and our social media on Saturday before the fights start so that you have our most updated lineups and picks.